All right, let's talk about Rumi. How does a super respected 13th century scholar become one of the most quoted poets of all time? Well, this wasn't some slow, gentle change. Nope, this was a spiritual explosion, and it was all lit by one of the most intense and radical friendships in history.
Okay, so to really get Rumi, you have to understand that there were basically two of him. On one side, you have Rumi, the scholar. This guy's a master of Islamic law, a brilliant teacher, the biggest brain in his city, a total man of the mind. But on the other side, you've got the Rumi the world knows today, the ecstatic mystic, the whirling dervish, the poet who writes about this incredible divine love, a man of the heart. So what on earth happened? What was the event that turned the scholar into the poet?
Before the year 1244, Rumi's life path was, well, it was pretty much set in stone. He was the undisputed intellectual heavyweight of his hometown, Konya, which is in modern-day Turkey.
And, his reputation was massive. He wasn't just some teacher. People literally called him unparalleled in knowledge, a sea of virtue and science. He was the guy everyone looked up to. His future was clear. He was going to live and die as the most revered scholar in the city. And then, a stranger walked into town.
And that stranger's name was Şems of Tebrîzî. Now, this guy was not a scholar. He wasn't a respected sheikh. He was a wandering mystic, kind of rough around the edges, who had a vision telling him to go find one specific person who could handle his company. He was looking for Rumi.
And this one quote from him tells you everything you need to know about the collision that was about to happen. You have Rumi, who is the definition of respectable fame. And then you have Şems, who sees fame as, a total disaster for the soul. He was anti-everything, and he had a very unique way of dealing with the ego.
It was a path called melamet, or the path of blameworthiness. The whole idea was to intentionally act in ways that made people criticize you, even look down on you. Why would anyone do that? Well, the goal was to completely shatter your ego, your attachment to your reputation, so that anything you did was purely for God, not to get a pat on the back. It explains why Şems could be so weird and confrontational.
Yeah, Şems didn't show up to gently guide Rumi. He was there to break him open. People said his words were like an Indian sword that just sliced through everything. He wasn't interested in Rumi's intellectual knowledge. He was there to burn the whole library down, spiritually speaking. So they finally meet in November 12, 1244. And what happens next is just wild. Rumi, the most famous public figure in the city, just drops everything. His students, his classes, his sermons, gone. He and Şems locked themselves away for 40 days of intense conversation. It totally scandalized the city. This was not a master and a student. This was something else entirely.
You see, friends doesn't even begin to cover what they were to each other.
The best way to think about it is this. They were a mirror. Şems believed that one soul could be a perfect mirror for another. And for Rumi, Şems was that mirror. When he looked at Şems, he wasn't seeing the famous scholar everyone else saw. For the first time, he was seeing his own true, divine self reflected back.
Şems had another great way of putting it. He saw Rumi as this incredible pearl diver, and he saw himself as the jewel merchant. See, Rumi had this amazing ability to dive deep into the ocean of spirit and find these priceless pearls, but he didn't even know how valuable they were. Şems was the expert who could look at a pearl and say, "Oh, you have no idea what you've found. This is a treasure." Their bond got so deep that their individual identities just started to melt into one another. Rumi himself said it perfectly in this quote to Şems. It was a total fusion of souls.
And the results of all this? It was immediate and it was absolute. The man who went into that 40-day retreat was not the same one who came out. The scholar was basically gone, and from his ashes, a poet, a lover, was starting to wake up.
Just look at this timeline. It shows you how sudden this was. In 1244, he meets Şems and boom, his old life just stops. But check this out. In 1246, Rumi's followers get so jealous they drive Şems away. And what happens? It's in that grief, that longing, that Rumi starts whirling and writing poetry. The art is born from the pain of separation. Then, after Şems vanishes for good in 1247, the floodgates just open. That's when his masterpieces pour out of him. So why did Şems disappear? Well, this all-consuming friendship between him and Rumi made a lot of people angry, especially Rumi's own students. They felt like they'd lost their teacher to this weird, abrasive stranger. The gossip, the hostility, it just became too much. So after being driven away once and coming back, the pressures started up again. And that's when Şems gave this chilling warning to Rumi's son. He basically said, "This time, when I go, I'm disappearing for good." And in 1247, he walked out one night and was never seen again. It's still a mystery.
Rumi's reaction to this final devastating loss was just profound. He started wearing his grief. He took off the white turban of the esteemed scholar and put on a smoke-colored one. He started wearing a simple cloak. And this wasn't temporary. This became his outfit for the rest of his life, a permanent, visible symbol of his loss and his transformation.
And that, right there, is the whole point. The Rumi we all know, the one whose poems about love and longing are everywhere, that Rumi didn't exist before Şems. That poet was born directly out of the fire of their friendship and the deep, crushing sorrow of his disappearance. The poetry was how he dealt with that absence. In the end, Şems's entire mission, all of his sharp, cutting wisdom, it really boils down to this one simple, powerful command. He wasn't trying to get followers, he was trying to find someone who was finally ready to look at themselves. Şems's purpose wasn't to be the answer. It was to be the mirror that showed Rumi the way. And in doing that, he helped create a poet whose voice would last for centuries. Which leaves us all with one big question, right? Rumi found his mirror. Where will you find yours?